Welcome, folks. Today's video, we're going to be talking about something a little bit different. We're going to be talking about the Twitter files. Now, if you don't know what that is, don't worry. This hasn't actually made it out into the mainstream media as much as you'd expect. On the 2nd of December, 2022, a journalist, Matt Taibbi, released a series of tweets showing evidence of email documentation between Twitter executives to censor a story released by the New York Post in 2020, leading to the presidential elections. Why is this such a mind-blowing story? Well, it shows that big tech have been censoring information and have been colluding to essentially sway things as important as our democratic process. Now look, I am not a Trump supporter. The important thing about this story is the censoring of free speech. The fact that big tech has so much power that they can actually manipulate our democratic processes. And this is the main story that we want to talk about. As a digital marketer myself, I've worked for Facebook and Google for nearly a decade, running Facebook ads, Google ads, and so on. And I've seen firsthand how much data these big tech companies have on their users. We've only seen the tip of the iceberg of how much information these big tech companies have to surveil us and be able to sway public opinions on certain topics. The fact that the Twitter files show categorically that there was executives in Twitter who took it on themselves to censor a newspaper that was founded by one of the founding fathers of America. They thought that they could take it on themselves as private citizens to choose what information should be put out there. It's shocking. So how did all this come about? Well, in 2020, the presidential elections between Biden and Trump was reaching a fever pitch. And essentially, 3 weeks before the elections in 2020, the New York Post published an explosive story of Hunter Biden's secret emails, which exposed communication between Hunter Biden, Joe Biden's son, and oligarchs in the Ukraine to meet his father. We're not going to go into huge depth about the Hunter Biden laptop emails, but the point is, this explosive story had huge potential to change public opinion. It does look bad, that's for sure. Now, the Hunter Biden laptop story showed that Hunter Biden was using his access to his dad to peddle influence with Ukraine businessmen and a whole bunch of foreign actors in exchange for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And the laptop did have some pretty discriminating video content of Hunter Biden taking a lot of drugs and partying a hell of a lot. So you can see the implications that this would have 3 weeks before this presidential election between Joe Biden, Hunter Biden's dad, and President Trump. At the time, the FBI had access to this laptop for nearly a year before the presidential elections, but decided not to investigate this and not to do anything with this information. The FBI had, in fact, warned all social media platforms that there may be Russian hacking and interference in the elections and to watch out for stories like this so that they could censor it before it got widely published. The FBI were playing defense because of the 2016 elections where Hillary Clinton's emails were hacked and released, which they believe was Russian interference on the elections as well. With the Hunter Biden laptop, it did look like it could have been a leak. At the time, there was a lot of misinformation and people weren't sure what to trust or what they were looking out for. So what does this have to do with the Twitter files? The Twitter files were released in early December 2022 by an independent journalist who was sent through this information. And what it showed is the email chains from the legal counsel to the head of policy and even Democratic congressmen and other politicians who were expressing their concerns around this story. And what the Twitter executives decided to do was censor it. They would remove it from any Twitter posts. They would not allow it to be messaged on Twitter privately. And they were just taking this off just to be cautious. The Twitter files show the level of control and power that the Twitter team had to control the narrative around this explosive story. And it shows the level of influence that our politicians and our business class have to sway the narrative and basically tell Twitter, Facebook, and other platforms what they can and can't talk about. We know that Facebook and Mark Zuckerberg were warned exactly the same way as Twitter and decided to pull the same story 3 weeks before the elections. Mark Zuckerberg talked about this in a podcast with Joe Rogan recently and admitted that this is what happened.
There was a lot of attention on Twitter during the election because of the Hunter Biden laptop story. The New York
we had that
Post
too.
Yeah, so you guys censored that as well?
The distribution on Facebook was decreased, but people were still allowed to share it. So you could still share it, you could still consume it.
So when you say the distribution is decreased,
It got shared.
How does that work?
It basically, the ranking in newsfeed was a little bit less. So fewer people saw it than would have otherwise. So it definitely...
By what percentage?
I don't know off the top of my head, but it's meaningful.
They also have a backdoor exclusively built for the FBI and other US government departments to be able to scan through these social media platforms for communications, certain keywords, and who knows what else. We don't have any transparency around this. So why do the Twitter files matter? Well, as a human living on planet Earth, the tools that we use now as a global community are more powerful than ever. Twitter, Facebook, Google, Microsoft, Amazon, Apple, they control so much of the information that we have access to. If Twitter and Facebook have admitted publicly that they had stories removed to sway a presidential election, what else is being censored? And I think that this is the most fundamental part of the story that we need to highlight. Free speech is important to any democratic society, and we need to have more transparency from the big tech companies and have more regulation around how these algorithms work.
Hey, look, if the FBI, which I still view as a legitimate institution in this country, it's like very professional law enforcement, they come to us and tell us that we need to be on guard about something, then I want to take that seriously.
When something like that turns out to be real, is there regret for not having it evenly distributed and for throttling the distribution of that story?
Yeah, I mean, it sucks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because it turned out after the fact, the fact checkers looked into it, no one was able to say it was false. Right, so basically it had this period where it was getting less distribution.
And there might be a right way to handle it, but I don't know what the fuck right way is.
Well, I think the right way is to establish principles for governance that try to be balanced and not have the decision-making too centralized.
I believe that decentralized open source platforms are the way to go because this ensures that we all can see and review the code and understand how these algorithms are filtering information to best serve us our news. We can't have our big tech companies controlled by a small group of society, whether it be intelligence officials, private companies, or eccentric CEOs, dictating the terms of how we can access information. It's really important that we as citizens of Earth are able to see how these platforms are censoring information. I know firsthand how powerful these companies are through their advertising platforms, how much data they have on each and every single one of us. They know what we're searching, what websites we're going to, thanks to Google Analytics and Facebook Pixels. They know what we're buying, how much time we're spending reading articles. They're scanning our messages on Facebook Messenger and probably WhatsApp as well, even though they say it's encrypted. I doubt very much that it is, seeing that Facebook has built a custom backdoor for US government officials, and there's a hell of a lot more that we're probably not being told. They have full access to us and are surveilling our every moves online. On top of that, they're also choosing what information we should be able to see, which in my opinion, and probably yours I'd hope, is not ethical. It's not moral. It's not what we want. We don't want this to be a clandestine type of activity. We live in a democracy. We want to make sure that we are having transparent systems that are well regulated, that have a clear framework of how these systems work, and they need to be transparent. We need to know what information is being censored and why, and we need to make sure that this is ruled by law and not by an executive branch of secret people. The problem with the Twitter files is that it shows that people at the very top of our political elites and our business class are in collusion to shape the narrative to suit their interests. Hunter Biden's laptop was left at a computer repair shop, which was then seized by the FBI. And the only reason this information got out in the first place was because the computer repair shop copied the data before the FBI seized it. And that is what was leaked to the New York Post. And that is why the story made it out there. The fact that the FBI then said there's going to be hacked information that may leak out and you need to censor this, and they told that to Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, Google, all of our big tech companies, and it was enforced, shows the level of corruption and immoral acts that are going on right now in our democracy. If this can happen right now, and this is what's proven categorically from the Twitter files, we know that this is only the tip of the iceberg, and there's so much more going on underwater that we cannot see. And that is why this information needs to get out there to as many people as possible. I really truly believe that we need to be talking about free speech, transparency, and decentralization for our big tech companies. And if these companies cannot get on board with that, they cannot act transparently, then we, the people, need to make sure that we're moving on from these platforms and using tools that are. So what do you think about this topic? Did you even know about the Twitter files? I've talked to dozens of people, and it seems like nobody knows about this story, which is why I felt that it was important to put something together to get it out there. This is a very important topic of our times, and it's a battle going on online that we're not even aware of because we can't see it. And when information like this comes out, again, it is only the tip of the iceberg. We don't know what else is going on. So that's why these types of instances are super important to highlight and make sure that we don't just let it slide back under the rug. So thanks so much for watching, guys. Do let me know what you think. I'd love to hear in the comments below if you think that this is a bigger deal than what we're being told, or if you think that it's a completely nothing burger. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks so much for watching. My name is Kyle from Social Geeks, and really appreciate you watching. Take care.